Hey, what's up, guys? Coach Mac, Play Fast Football. I hope everybody in Florida is safe, gearing up for what you may be getting, at least on the East Coast, of the hurricane coming up. We are out of school till Thursday, so no game this week, postponed until our bye week, so we won't play until the following week. So hopefully everybody stays safe. If you are on the East Coast, especially anywhere near the coastline, probably going to get some pretty good damage. All right, make sure you check out our sponsors. MAXOne App is an app that allows you to streamline organization, communication, and workouts into one platform, making your life a little bit easier as a head football coach. Defensive Coordinator 1 is an in-game app that lets you make critical in-game adjustments based on live in-game data. Somebody up in the booth is charting what the other team is actually running, charting the personnel, the formations, the plays, direction, all the things that are happening in the game so that you can match your calls up that you're making with the calls that are actually being run against you, so you can make the proper in-game adjustments you need to make to get your kids in the right position. The Difference USA, which is the ultimate striking machine, we have one in our weight room. All right, you can work on striking and hand placement. You can get thousands of reps without needing a partner. You don't need someone to hold a bag. You don't need someone to hold a medicine ball. You can get thousands of reps just on the machine itself. They make universal attachments for you to bring out on the practice field so you can get thousands of reps pre-practice, during practice, after practice, without needing a partner. JustPlayFB, which is the digital software I use to diagram plays. If I'm going to do a webinar or speak at any clinics, it's the only play drawing tool that I will use to diagram my plays, so make sure you check out JustPlayFB. GameStrat is a sideline replay system, all right, that we use in the description box below, underneath the video on YouTube. In that description box, you will see a direct link to take you directly to GameStrat's website if you are interested. They've got great customer service. They are friendly. They are easy to work with, so I highly recommend GameStrat. And then Dome Hats, which is a major sponsor of Play Fast Football. Again, this is one of our Play Fast Football hats that Dome did for us. All right, Flex Fit Cap. Dome Hats is a local company here in Northeast Florida doing more work across the country, trying to get into every sport, every state, every staff. All right, founded by two former Florida Gator football players that understand what coaches go through. All right, again, great product, custom hats, beanies, visors, great online hat builder that allows you to design your own hats. So really great company. Glad to have them on board with Play Fast Football. Make sure you check out Dome Hats. All right, so today I'm going to do a video on fitting man pressures, all right, and playing zero coverage behind man pressures. And the things that I think you need to work on, and the things that we are constantly working on with our players, especially at the younger level, on the JV level, of getting guys to understand how to fit man pressures, especially in the run game. I know a lot of times when people are talking about man pressures, you're constantly worried about things in the throw game. You're worried about getting beaten one-on-one. You're worried about screens. You're worried about things in the throw game. But for me as a high school football coach, when we run zero pressures, all right, I like to shore up our run game first, because there's some things that happen real quickly. All right, if you're playing good teams that know how to block pressures and they know how to handle, all right, pressures, especially with gap schemes. If you're playing good teams, you're going to need your man players to understand how to show up and where to show up. And one of the big keys is understanding alignment with how to line up to various sets if you're playing man on backs in the backfield, if you're trying to bracket backs in the backfield, and then understanding where to send those runs if you're the front side player, depending on what the sets are. So when we get young kids in at the JV level, we struggle with getting them to understand how to line up when they're playing man versus backfield sets, if they're linebackers or safeties playing man-to-man on backs in the backfield, and then trying to get them to fit and understand how to fit and where to send the ball in those pressures is something that we have to work on constantly. I know originally when I was a younger coach, a lot of times you'd go see people speak and they would talk about man-to-man, and they would talk about how easy it is because you're just playing a man, fit your runs off of your man, and it's not that simple. And if you're not really on top of how you're working it and what you're doing, when you play good football teams in the run game, you can really get hurt quickly, all right, when you are playing zero coverage. So one thing I will mention is I am not a big fan of zero pressures versus quarterback runs. I am not. If you have some guys up front that can absolutely cause havoc and they're not blockable when they pressure, then obviously zero pressures can be effective versus quarterback runs. But if you are an average team or the other team has better offensive linemen and they can handle pressures and stunts and they can pick it up. I am not an advocate of zero pressure versus quarterback run team. So we like it when we're getting two-back runs or teams that aren't quarterback run orientated. We like it to change up how we fit our runs. We like it to add something to the package so that the offense has to prepare for some different movements and some different things and make sure they can get all those things blocked, which takes time away from them preparing how they block our base front. So we will mix it in versus two-back teams that aren't heavy quarterback run. So one of the first things I got drawn up on a board is double A-gap pressure. I think almost everybody in the country runs some version of double A-gap pressure, whether it's a zero pressure or a hot pressure that became popular by teams like Michigan State and some other teams in college running it as an 8-man front hot pressure, 2 underneath, 3 deep. Either way, double A-gap pressure has been something that's been run for a long time. It puts a lot of pressure on centers, especially teams that are shotgun teams, or if teams are under center quick hitting teams, whether they be trap or maybe midline veer teams, things that hit real quick. A lot of times double A-gap pressure can put pressure on the center and lead to some success as a defense. But what you got to understand is if you're playing against good gap teams, what you got to understand is they can sort out all these pressures, and especially when your linebackers are a little bit lighter. All right, if you're playing a good gap scheme team that can block, down on the B-gap player, down on the front side A-gap player, center can block back on the blitzer, and then they can hinge, the B-gap player on the backside. And if they're really good at what they're doing, they can hinge the B-gap player while making the corner wide so that, the outside pressure guy, especially off a short edge, a two-man surface, this is a guy who is normally got to sit an edge, and he's normally a quarterback player on boots, so he can't be as aggressive. But if this edge is short, this is a guy that can really make a lot of issues in the power game if they don't hinge the backside correctly. If they step the hinge, the backside, when they go to pull, this guard here, when they step the hinge, that backside, if they get real flat down inside with that hinge, and because you're blitzing the A-gap with a linebacker, the center can't help back block for the tackle, so the tackle's really got to hinge that and do a good job hinging that. If he doesn't do a good enough job and gets real flat, then this guy on the backside may be able to make it an issue. I know that for us in the RPO game, that backside edge player that you kind of unchain sometimes, he's been a little bit of an issue in the RPO game. I know that if you read in the shotgun some of the power stuff, that guy gets put in a bind, so he really can't help. So what ends up happening is if you can't get that backside edge guy involved, now when you get these gap schemes that are blocked down, back, hinge, and this guard pulls, you're going to get a kick block there, and when your 6-man pressures, a lot of times you probably won't spill, and some teams do, and it's fine, but a lot of times you may not spill your 6-man pressures. So now when you get this, you're going to get this blocked here, and this guard, if they're good enough with what they're doing, this guard will get a chance to turn up on somebody. On defense, what you got to understand is you have two players that, if you're good enough up front with your movement, you've got two players that within their front line, especially without a tight end in the game, those are two players that they shouldn't be able to get to. If they have to block down on a B-gap player, down on an A-gap player, back on an A-gap blitzer, and hinge a B-gap player, they really shouldn't have any other lineman outside the backside pulling guard that can get to the second level. So what your players now have to understand is the man players have to understand is the front side player. First thing, get them in position to make plays. All too often, I see, especially versus offset teams, I see the backside safety way too far away to make a play on front side runs. If their back is in the pistol and the other back is offset, you need to go ahead and bump these guys to where they're in position now, to make plays for you, because out of the 6 that you're sending and the 2 that are playing man, those are going to be the 2 guys that have to be freed up to make plays. So now what you got to understand versus this scheme is this free safety versus a good offense that can collect all of these stunts and pressures. A good offense that can collect all of these, they're going to get the guard up on this man player. This man player has to understand how to take that block on outside arm and leg free and turn it back to a man player who understands how to not get caught up in traffic, how to not just plug straight into the line of scrimmage. He understands how to play off of his partner so that when this ball gets turned back to him, he can be the free hitter to be able to make a play. Now, he's still got to make a tackle. If they get the whole thing blocked right, you have a free hitter on a tailback, but that guy's got to be able to make a tackle. If you don't fit these correctly, and your two-man players don't understand how to fit them, these runs, especially in zero coverage, they can rip for a long way. So, double A gap pressure isn't the greatest in my opinion versus gap schemes. I don't like it versus gap schemes. We don't run it very often versus true gap scheme teams that are really good at what they're doing because I think you're just walking guys up to be blocked. I think it may be better versus man schemes or versus ISO schemes. It may be better to put some pressure on the center. But when you're playing a good gap scheme, I do not like, all right, double A gap pressure. We run it as a pressure. I know a lot of people run it as a pressure, so I wanted to draw it up and go through some of the issues that you have, all right, to make sure you understand how you have to fit things in the run game. Now, one of the other pressures you'll see a lot of times is you'll see double edge, all right, or edge from each side. So you'll see teams that, if they're even front teams, you'll see teams that'll walk up, all right, a will linebacker, walk up, a Sam linebacker, you'll get your Mike there, and then your left safety in the box there. So you'll get these understunts where they're pirate on this side, all right, stabbing the B-gap on the backside or rubbing the B-gap on the backside, edge, edge. Again, when you're playing a gap team, what can happen is they can collect all these when they understand, good gap teams understand with a walk-up, they know the movement they're going to get. So you can get that block down, you can get that block down, you can get that block back. They can hinge and seal that. Again, the player off the backside edge, depending on if they are a read team, he might have a few issues with the QB. If they are a team that's good enough to hinge this and get some depth and make the corner wider, he may not get there. If they're a team that has a lot of boots, you're going to have to play him on boots, so you can't count on that backside guy. Now, you can send that backside guy hell-bent for leather, and when that tackle hinges, you can take him and get him hell-bent for leather as flat to maybe make plays in the power game. If they read it in the shotgun at all, so if they're offset, if they got the cue here and the tail here and they read that at all, he's going to get eaten up by the read game because you are in, all right, you are in zero coverage, and now you would have to, in your zero stuff, if you're going to chase that, you better make sure that that guy understands that versus that movement, even though he's a man player, you are going to gap exchange that. So you can't always count on that backside guy in pressure being hell-bent for leather making plays because he's probably got to be a guy that plays boots and some other things and quarterback on read game in most of your pressure schemes when you're double edge. So if they collect all those schemes and they pull backside guard, you're going to get into the same issue. They're going to kick the blitzer. The blitzer is usually some type of, all right, some type of force player. So a lot of times he's not going to spill those. He may box them. So what's going to happen is they're going to kick the blitzer, and now your Mike has to understand when he fits, he's got to fit on the outside half of that guard so that he turns the ball back into, all right, the free hitter on the backside that's got to be able to make a tackle in space. So when you are sending pressures, how and where you play man and what you choose to do with your man coverage and how you fit your man coverage is a big, big deal. Where these kids line up, how they react, understanding how to box versus spill certain things. So versus this power scheme right now, we have to spill that ball. That first side man player has to be able to spill that ball back. I'm sorry, he's got to be able to hammer that ball, not spill. All right, my fault. He's got to be able to hammer that ball back to his backside player. We don't want to spill, is what I'm trying to get to, because we're going to spill the ball to nobody. So we've got to be able to hammer that, not spill it. So he's got to understand not only where he fits in a two-back scheme, but when he gets that power scheme, he's going to get blocked by a good gap scheme team. He's going to get blocked by that pulling guard. If you don't get major penetration in here, if you don't get major penetration on the backside, he's going to be blocked by that guard. He's got to understand to hammer that back to the safety who is playing, all right, the other back, and when that other back releases for power, this way, this guy's got to be somebody that understands how to tempo the ball, stay on the back hip, know that your partner is going to hammer it back to you, not get caught up in any of the trash here, and be able to make plays behind your front side backer that's going to hammer the ball back to you. So when you're running zero pressures, you have to be able to make sure you can handle A, the QB, B, make sure your man players know where to send the ball and when to turn the ball back into where to turn the ball back into so that your backside player can be free to make plays. And then the alignment of these two players is very critical, understanding where they need to align. All right, we had a hard time the other night in our JV game. We were playing similar deals to this, and we would have a man player sitting here, and the other safety playing man was sitting back there. When the ball went front side like this, if we didn't get it turned back in by the edge, or if we didn't get it turned back by the mic, this guy is in no position to make plays on that side of the ball. So positioning the man players, understanding who they're playing, getting them to understand how to look at their key, all right, is very important. And then the other thing that you better work on a ton in man pressures is when you get this action. One back coming back and one back going through. Week 1, man pressure, we got beat on a touchdown. Safety here, backer, whoever it is here. This safety peeked his nose in, played the back going away. We had this backer here getting ready to play that back. The other team did a great job of sneaking this player out into the flat. Not exactly same formation, but play in general. Quarterback pulls the ball, throws the ball right out to this player here. And because this man player in the bracket scheme, there's two backs. One has to go one way, one comes back. I've got the back coming back, and because I don't come off and play that, they get an easy goal line touchdown with an easy throw to an athlete in space, 4-yard touchdown on the first drive of the game. Great scheme by that team. Poor job of us bracketing and playing the backs. So when you're man pressuring, you have to understand how to fit runs. You have to understand where you're trying to get the ball to go to, where you're trying to get the ball sent back to, and your man players have to understand how to line up and where to put themselves in a position to make plays in the run game. On top of that, you'll have to deal with playing man coverage on the back end. You'll have to deal with screens. You'll have to deal with all the other things that man coverage kind of gives issues to. Obviously, there's more and more man and man free being played versus RPO teams because you take away some of the run conflict, but you put a lot of pressure on the guys playing man on the backs to show up and make plays, and you really put a lot of pressure, or at least we do, within our gap stuff. We really try to emphasize to our guys up front, depending on, for us, especially as a 3-down team, we really need to emphasize versus our guys, depending on what the movement is, we really need to emphasize that we're gap sound in what we're doing, so that if we're bringing any types of pressures, our guys understand how to be gap sound. If we're bringing that type of deal and bringing 6-man pressure, we've got to understand how to chase. So now on the front side, when you get these down blocks, it's probably going to be, all right, the mic that's going to get blocked down. We've got to understand with this long stick now, as he goes across, what's this guard doing? If this guard goes to help on the nose to the backside backer, that's where we can possibly gain a guy front side on the long stick turning up in there. Center's got to understand how to get back there. And then here we got to understand that we're going to get a pull and a hinge. So what happens a lot of the times when you're running man pressures is the only guys you can add to the front of the play are the two players playing man. So whether it be a safety here and a safety there, these are the only two guys you can add to the front side of the scheme, because your blitzers a lot of times, unless you allow them to read out in certain schemes, you're not going to be able to add anybody on the backside. What do I mean by reading out? If this guard would have pulled for power and you had a B-gap blitzer coming from depth and he saw the pull, all right, he could read out and bring himself across, which is something he would do if you were playing a base scheme. So if you were playing a base defensive scheme and you got power, one of the things you got to do is you got to add a guy to the front side, however you're going to do it, because they're going to add a guy. So when you get backside pullers, the thing about the power scheme as the offense that makes it a great scheme is they are adding a body from the backside to the front side. So they're adding a body from the backside to the front side. They're adding a number. You got to be able to add a number on defense. So if you are an odd front team like us, you've got to be able to add this backside linebacker to the front side, and then you've got to be able to close it out behind him with whatever you're doing in coverage so that he can play fast on the pull so you can add him to the front side. Or if you're an even team, a lot of times we used to work as an even front team. We'd play with a one eye, or what some people call, I would call it a one eye, all right, or I would call it a one technique inside eye of the guard. Some people would call it a two eye. For me, it would just be a one, and anything on the center would be a shade. But we would play a one technique shaded on the guard, so that we would work, when we got these back block pull schemes, we would work this nose guard on humping the center and trying to get back over the top, so that he adds himself to the front side. When they add his key pulls away, they're adding a body to the front side. So we would work on back pull, back block, hump the center, and add a body to the front side. When you're blitzing and playing man schemes, a lot of times you can't add that body. So the body you add has got to be your man players. So they have to understand where to fit and how to fit, and even more importantly, probably how to align to do both those jobs. So if you are a man pressure team, you are seeing a lot more man pressures nowadays because of RPOs. Man pressures are good because they're easy to line up to. There's not as much teaching involved on the coverage aspect of it. As far as covering routes in down the field, it's a matter of handling brackets and rubs and picks and being better, being a good enough athlete to handle things down the field. But it's not a matter of zone blitzes require match, carry, deliver, and making sure guys understand who 2 is and who 3 is. And man pressures are easier to line up to, and if you've got good players, it's easier to say, hey, you got him one-on-one, like basketball, wherever he goes, you go. So it's an easier theory as far as getting it taught. It's sometimes harder to do if you don't have the right players to do it. But in my opinion, the harder thing about man pressures are fitting runs, and make sure you know where the guys are fitting runs and where the extra guys that are playing man have to show up to get the ball sent to, and then that other guy has to be able to show up when it's sent back to him, and then he's got to be able to make a tackle. So if you're a man pressure team, keep those things in mind. I would suggest that you work a lot of run fits when you are in man pressure with your guys, and not just pass and screen stuff, because runs will get you killed in zero pressure real quick, because if they do hit, they'll hit with nobody left back there, and they'll hit for big gains. I also don't suggest heavy man pressures versus quarterback run teams. Okay, so hopefully everybody stays safe. I hope that video helps you guys out. What I'd also like to do right now is take a chance to announce the fifth speaker at our first ever Play Fast Football Clinic. All right, it's going to be Brian Braddock, who is the head football coach at St. Augustine High School. All right, Brian Braddock is 51-19 as a head football coach. 2015 8A Coach of the Year, Florida Athletic Coaches Association 8A largest classification Coach of the Year. He's a one-time regional champ, 3 Elite 8 appearances, 1 undefeated regular season. Currently the head coach at St. Augustine. Brian is one of the, in my opinion, one of the youngest, brightest future stars out there. And I don't say future stars, and he hasn't already done. He's already done a lot of great things. He's already done a lot of great things in his career, better than I've already done in my career. All right, what I mean to say is he's a young, up-and-coming mind that is really good in all 3 phases of the game. And he is also somebody, all right, that wants to do things the right way. He wants to do things with his players and his program the right way. So he fits right in with what we're trying to do with Play Fast Football. So we are extremely excited to have Brian Braddock as the 5th speaker at the Play Fast Football Clinic. Remember to go to www.playfastfbclinic.com for registration info, hotel info, vendor info. Again, that's www.playfastfb.com. That clinic will be January 24th, 25th, 26th, 2020 in St. Augustine, Florida. Everybody stay safe if you're in the hurricane. If you're not, good luck to you this week. Hopefully you get that 1st, 2nd, 3rd win. All right, keep playing hard. Keep working with your players. Remember, you won't play well till you play fast. See you guys next time.